My 26M wife, 26F, wants all of her dreams to come true right now and wants me to do all the work to make it happen. We have been married 1.5 years and all I've learned is she is lazy and entitled. I love her, but how do I make this work and fix things when she is an entitled woman child? Throwaway account. I work a job that is high stress and frequently requires 70-hour weeks. My parents barely gave me any financial help, so I put myself through college and worked hard to get a decent job. Because of this, I am very budget conscious and managed to have a large amount of savings when we got married. My wife had parents who gave her everything, so she barely had to work until we got married. She works a normal 9-5 job now, barely ever any overtime, and never weekends. She earns 1/3 of what I do. She has the option to work overtime but never does. When she gets home from work, she just sits and is lazy all night reading or sitting on her phone. I do most of the chores in our house as far as cleaning and maintaining things goes. This means I could get off work and get to do a mound of dishes afterwards. I never receive a thank you for the chores I do. If she has an assigned chore such as dishes, she will just leave them in the sink for over a week until I do them. She begged and begged, so we bought a house recently and are putting all the money I saved into it. She knows that's where our money is going, and yet she constantly tells me how much she wants to travel right now and how much she wants to quit her job because she is burnt out. It's at the point where she nearly just booked a trip regardless of how much money we have, and was nearly in tears when I explained that we are buying a house. Even with all her free time, she never works out and she eats like crap. She has started to let herself go and is having some health issues that stem from her terrible diet, but she refuses to do anything about it. I try to take care of myself even with all the hours I work, but that fact is never noticed or appreciated. I'm just tired. It feels like I do all the work. We've talked about it, but nothing changes. I believe marriage is meant to be forever, but I just feel stuck. How do I make this relationship work and keep my sanity without going broke? Edit. I don't think I was clear enough in what really frustrates me. Her working a normal 40-hour job is great, and I don't have any problem with it. I chose a job in accounting and knew there would be long hours. The problem I have is working a 12-hour day and coming home to piles of dishes and her clothes and stuff everywhere. And the pile of dishes is for something she made for just herself, not for us as a couple. But she has just been reading all night. Then she complains about how she doesn't feel great, but never lifts a finger to exercise even when I constantly encourage her to just do anything with me that could include a walk or whatever she finds enjoyable. And then she makes me feel like crap because I'm trying to make sure we can actually pay our mortgage and do all the work to earn money to pay for everything we do, but I'm the bad guy because I know that we just bought the house she wanted. So right now we don't have the money to travel. I have told her in a year or so we probably can. Then she goes further to complain that her job has just burnt her out. If I ever try to mention I had a tough day at work, she will just compare it to her job and talk about how hers is so much worse. I don't resent her for having a 40-hour job. I do get extremely frustrated that I work hard to pay for most everything in our lives, but that's not enough because she wants to have a house and travel and quit her job all right this very instant. And we actually could afford everything she wants if she just worked a bit of overtime once in a while. But no, I'm always having to be a parent and say no to travel for now, and then the next day beg her to keep working her normal job, while mine is sucking away all my time, and then the next day beg her to eat a fruit or vegetable for the first time in multiple days. And for those who said, maybe I spend our money on a dumb habit, let me assure you that is not the case. I pretty much only spend money on my home gym and have not bought anything significant for it yet, and streaming subscriptions. Netflix is expensive to be fair. I, 28M, told my parents, 51F, 50M, and siblings the truth, and I think I broke them. Throw away for reason that will be explained below. I, 28M, had dinner over at my parents' house a week ago. At some payant during the night, my mother started questioning me as to why I kick my sister, 21F, out of my house. She already knows the reasons to why, but she kept asking me to give her another chance. My father asked me to take on my sister. Originally, this was great as I travel a lot for work, so I had someone to take care of the house in my absence. She would effectively lived alone as I am sometimes away too, 3 weeks out of a month. The only condition I put on her living with me was that she takes care of the house in my absence and cleans up after herself. A week after she moved in, I left for 3 weeks. When I came back, the house was a mess. No clean cutlery, dishes, nothing. The pizza box and plates was still in the same position as when I left the house 3 weeks ago, and she was sitting on the couch with 6 plates of uneaten food stacked on each other. Some had started to grow mold. I asked what is Jiang on with the house, and she told me it's my house, my job to clean up. Why should she clean up? I told you are a grown woman. I never expected the house to be sparkling when I return, but at least in the same condition as I left it. She wouldn't have died if she just cleaned up after herself, and again she said my house, my responsibilities. I just saw red. I snapped and told her to get her shit and get out of my house, and she laughed at me and said, "This is your home now, get to cleaning." Everything was funny to her until I started to throw the crap outside. And she started with the waterworks, and when that didn't work, she called my parent. I got a call from my father, and I asked what is Jiang on. I told him. I hung up the phone and sent him pictures of my house. He didn't even respond, only arrived 25 minutes later to pick up my sister, and he apologized to me. The story above was just my breaking point, but a lot of crap other that this has happened over years. I am always the last resort. Any issues someone has, they come to me. If someone needs money, I'm the one they call. If they need a place to stay, they show up at my house. They need help with something, I'm the one. And I have always had to sit on the back burner and just be the support for everyone in their times of need. And when I needed them, they weren't there, and I was told be a man and sort it out. My parents has been great parents to my younger siblings. 4 kinds in total. They have all stayed with me in the past as well, rent-free, no contributions at all. I didn't have a childhood. I became the 3rd parent in the household. Everything regarding my siblings fell onto me. If I have to write everything I have done or been through for my siblings and parents, I will be writing this post for days. I don't really blame my parents, as circumstances was a lot different from when I was a child to my siblings. But the difference in the way we all were raised is evident. My siblings are entitled pieces of crap to mud it nicely, and the world has to bend to their wants. After my mom's constant question, I snapped when she said, "Am being heartless." I just unleashed everything onto them. I was ranting for about 30 minutes while they sat there in silence with their eyes getting bigger as the minutes passed. I finished with saying the only reason I'm still alive today is because I don't want them to stand next to my grave wondering what they did wrong. So I will be heartless, as I think it's time for me to stop worrying about that. I'm just tired of all this crap. I'm the backup for everyone in this family. I can see the pain on my parents' faces as they can't even look me in the eyes anymore. Every time I miss a phone call from one of them, my phone blows up as they think I did something. I fell asleep on the couch yesterday as I worked 36 hours straight and was tired. During me sleeping, my father tried to call me, and as I was asleep, I didn't answer his calls. I got woken up as police kicked down my door when my parents showed up at my house after I didn't answer them, and they saw me laying on the couch. The knocking and banging didn't wake me. That was the first time I saw my father cry, as they thought I deleted myself. I think I broke my parents as my youngest sister told me they just exist in their house and don't even talk to each other. The house is cold, and she can hear both my parents just burst out crying sometimes, especially during the night. I just want to know, is there any way to move on with this? My twin sister, 18F, and I, 18F, took a genetic test, and we did not share any DNA. What should my next step be when no one in the family is telling me why? My twin and I are fraternal twins. Recently, we took a genetic test for fun because we wanted to see what we shared and the differences between us. Since we still share genes, fraternal twins are like siblings genetically. My grandparents had suggested the tests and got them for us, so our parents didn't know about it. But our results made no sense. My twins was coming up almost completely as Eastern European and Western European, which makes sense, as most of my family are Croatian, German, or Austrian, so all of that would be accurate. But mine wasn't anything like that. It was almost completely Scandinavian, with some Russian and a couple of other places. Neither of which were on my twin's result. She had a very small percentage of Scandinavian, but that was it. And we had no matched DNA, which clearly seemed impossible. We were literally twins. We have to share DNA. And my twin said they must have mixed my sample up with someone else. We ended up contacting the company, and my twin and I took a test again. It was the same result. Both my twin and I were really confused. We told our grandparents, and they just said that was interesting, and said nothing else. My twin said we should tell our parents and see if they had ever done a genetic test, or if any of our siblings had, and then we could see if somehow ours were still right. I mean, it kind of made sense I'd have Scandinavian, because I'm much taller than my mother and quite a bit taller than my twin, and I'm way better at football and handball than she is. And I'm very blonde compared to the rest of my family, but I had thought it was the German. When we told our mother, they reacted almost the same way as my grandparents, but she seemed annoyed, and said that they're inaccurate anyway, and our grandparents shouldn't have told us to take one. And when we asked our father, he basically said nothing. I'm confused. I know my twin thinks it's just a mistake, but I don't think so. We have to share DNA, about 50%. That's how twins and siblings work. Even though we're fraternal, we should still share quite a bit of DNA. But other explanations don't make sense. My mother can't have cheated on my father because my twin and I would still share DNA. Just less, because we would have different fathers. The results mean we can't share a parent or even be related. But I don't see why my parents would adopt me if I'm not their child, when I don't think they've ever been to Scandinavia, and why they'd adopt a baby that's almost exactly the same age as their baby. I'm panicking. The person I'm closest with in the whole world, who I thought I even shared the womb with, might not even be related to me. My birthday might not even be real. None of this makes any sense, and no one is telling me the truth. I'm also scared my twin might tell her boyfriend about it, and then people might end up knowing that I'm some kind of fraud and my family isn't my family at all. Update. So I'm adopted, which was probably quite obvious as soon as I got the results, but I guess I was in denial. My parents told me a couple of days ago. Not much, but a bit. I know now that my mother was Danish, and my father's old girlfriend from when he was really young, which is seriously weird. I asked them a lot of questions, but I didn't get answers to all of them. I don't know who my father is, how my parents were able to adopt me, and why, if she's even alive, nothing. But thankfully I am actually legally adopted by them, which is a relief, since I was worried I might not be. And my birthday is actually my birthday, so they haven't been committing any weird fraud. It's very weird. My sister has been acting weirdly, and my family as well. But in some ways, it's a relief. My parents still feel like my parents, and my siblings like my siblings. I know that technically they're not, but I don't feel too upset about it. I'm just upset they lied and also won't tell me everything. I don't know if they genuinely don't know or don't want to talk about it, but at least I have an idea about everything now. I'm still not quite sure how I feel about it, but I'm glad I know about things now. Plus, now I have a country that's actually good at football to support, which is nice. Maybe someday I'll find out everything. Maybe not. I could probably look her up and find her if I wanted to, but I'm not sure if I do, if she's still alive. Although everything is different, it doesn't feel so bad, but it does at the same time. It's very weird. But I have a family that loves me, so it could be much worse. I feel sad about my twin, since we're not actually related, which feels really different, and she's acting different as well, but I still love her a lot, and my parents as well. I think it will take some time to know how I really feel. In some ways, I want to be mad at everyone and do stupid things, but that's only sometimes. And overall, I feel okay, so that's good. And eventually, I think I'll be content with how everything is. My wife, F, and our therapist say I truly am an emotional abuser, and I don't know what to do. This all possibly stems from a traumatic event my wife experienced. 10 years ago, me, my brother, and my wife, then girlfriend, were in rural Thailand, and her back was hurt from being on a motorcycle for too long. We stayed in a hotel, and she believed my brother and I were going to abandon her there. She overheard us talking about how to get her to a hospital and misunderstood. Since then, she doesn't like to be around my brother. When we got married, I promised her that she'd never have to see him again. Later, she amended that to be that our children will never see him either. I have a problem with that. I am very close to my brother. He is my identical twin. Often, when I bring up the issue, she gets very upset. For example, we were driving, and I mentioned the possibility of moving into the same neighborhood as him, so our children can grow up with their cousins. She got so upset that she started screaming, sped up the car to dangerous speeds, and started shaking the steering wheel, almost fishtailing. We were on a windy stretch of highway with a cliff on one side. I kept yelling at her to stop the car and pull over, but she wouldn't. The end result of all this is that for a long time, with some recent exceptions, we didn't see my brother's family, and I would avoid mentioning him, and when I talked on the phone to him, I would do it out of earshot of her. She has many other complaints about him, but they are mostly irrational. She says he's an emotional abuser. She also says I'm an emotional abuser. And her brother, sister, father, and aunt are also abusers. I haven't really met them, so I don't know. We saw a couples therapist, and the therapist agreed that I am an abuser. My wife would exaggerate things, make some things up, and say that I was lying. The therapist believed her. After several brutal sessions, I couldn't take it and stopped going. I had a personal therapist that I saw a few times. He became our couples therapist. The same thing happened with him. He believed her story, didn't believe mine, and said that I was an abuser. He had me go to a batterer group for 3 hours a week, plus 2 hours driving. He had me read a book about abuse, with instructions to not consider my wife as an abuser when reading it. The book said that women can't be abusers. He instructed me to have specific thoughts every time I thought badly of my wife. Almost every waking hour of my life was spent thinking about abuse. I couldn't concentrate on anything else. They had me convinced that I was an abuser. After all, 2 therapists in a row, and my wife say so. I think part of what convinced me was it was a way to repair our marriage. If I'm an abuser, that's something I can fix. These are the points they made. That makes me an abuser. How I handled the previously mentioned back injury. In retrospect, I should have left the bike and took a bus with her to the city. Instead, we stayed at the hotel for a few days until her back was better. During the same Thailand trip, one day I was upset that we had to walk so much. My brother was the one who suggested the hike, but I took my anger out on my wife by saying something like, "You made me do all this walking." During the same trip, I sided with my brother over a discussion about who gets what bed at an Airbnb. He was okay with either bed, as long as you don't walk by it in the middle of the night. My wife disagreed. For about 6 months, I slacked off on chores. My wife did about 15% more than me. I'm entitled. Since I worked during our relationship, until our daughter was born, and she didn't, I feel like I deserve to work less now. I mentioned that I struggled with this to my therapist when I was seeing him personally. He told my wife this without my consent. Now it's a thing that I'm entitled, even though I don't act like it other than the previously mentioned slacking off on chores. I told my wife she had bad breath once, 8 years ago, and another time I said she smelled, after we got off a plane. The therapist said this was cruel, but my intentions were just to let her know. One weekend, visiting my brother's family, she says I was passive-aggressive to her after I saw a photo that upset me. I am certain she is lying about some things that happened that weekend, and I don't remember being angry. I gaslight her about the previously mentioned weekend by saying I don't remember being angry. But I really don't remember that, and I asked my brother, and he doesn't either. She says that often when I'm around my brother, I become passive-aggressive towards her. I am unsafe around our daughter, for example, riding my electric bike around her. The bike weighs 110 pounds. I wanted our daughter to have a later bedtime. She cries every single night when put to bed, and I hate hearing that. I wanted to go to a weekly storytime event with my daughter, but not with my wife. My goal was to make friends who were parents. I did, and my wife said I was emotionally cheating on her and controlling by not wanting her to go with me. I couldn't find my checkbook for a few weeks and didn't write my wife a check until I found it. She says this was financial abuse. Our baby, 4 months old, was crying while we were in the drive-thru. I became upset at my wife because she wouldn't take her out of the car seat and comfort her. I'm not a great person, but I don't think the previous points are enough to brand me an abuser, although I understand that her behavior is in response to trauma that I caused, and I take responsibility for that. In contrast, this is what she does to me. Yells, screams, and lectures at me all the time. There will be months where it happens every day, often for hours. She will call me names like retard, or tell me that I will be alone forever. She will sometimes wake me up to yell at me. A common theme in her lectures is that I'm an abuser, and then she will go over past grievances, like the above-mentioned ones. There are things that I have apologized for over 100 times, not exaggerating. In her mind, things are distorted so that I'm a monster. I.e., me asking, "Can you get me a blanket?" becomes, "Get me a blanket," in a mean tone. In our fights, I rarely get a word in. There are often long pauses where she's waiting for me to say something, but if I do, my point will be ignored, and she will instantly change the subject or she will get angry. Sometimes, if I talk back to her too much, she will get so upset that she kind of snaps. I remember one time she repeated, "I'm abused," slowly over and over while crying hysterically. I think this is PTSD. It's awful to see. I have panic attacks sometimes, unrelated to her, so I sort of understand. When she's yelling at me, if I try to leave, she will chase me or physically block me from leaving. I have given up trying to leave. Her screaming at me is sometimes in front of our daughter. She has also directly told our daughter negative things about me. I don't recall exactly, but it was probably that I'm an abuser. Threatens to divorce me and get full custody of our daughter. This happened weekly for about a year. This is used as a tactic to get me to do something, like to continue to go to the batterer group, or to continue to see the therapist, or to say something. She had me unlock my phone and saw that I had 2 new contacts as of the day before. She made me leave the WhatsApp group I just joined and banned me from going to storytime at the library, where I met them, and I was banned from talking to one of them if I ever saw her around. Weeks later, this was amended so that I can go if my wife also goes. She threatened to message them and tell them I'm an abuser. Making friends with parents who share kids the same age as mine was a goal I had. I don't make friends easily, so this was a huge blow. I currently don't have any real friends. I believe she tells some of our mutual acquaintances, my family, and our neighbors that I'm an abuser. She's denied the latter, but I'm not sure. I am not allowed to take our daughter anywhere my brother is. She is angry often. For example, sitting in the car while I'm driving, I can tell she is stewing about something, which often means a talking to later in the day. It's stressful to be around. There are a myriad of rules that she has for me that she doesn't follow herself, i.e., giving our daughter sugar. I want to stress how uncomfortable it is to be in a batterer group, surrounded by people who are court-ordered to be there. Violent people, week after week, following the program. Our therapist said I am worse than them because emotional abuse is worse than physical abuse, because it doesn't leave marks. I became so depressed a couple of months ago that something had to give. She did her usual thing where she threatened to divorce me, and I said, "Okay, let's divorce." I had realized that my life would be significantly improved without her. I packed a bag and she realized I was serious. She convinced me to stay. Since then, things have changed a lot. A lot of her rules have been lifted. Other rules I've decided not to follow. She is allowing us to see my brother's family sometimes. I can see she is still angry sometimes, but far less often, and she doesn't yell. There is still tension between us, but it feels like things are almost repaired. Now, she says I have autism. Her belief is that my bad behavior is due to autism, so it's forgivable. It feels really nice to finally be forgiven. She has us seeing a new couples therapist who specializes in relationships with an autistic person. It's unclear to me if this is real or it's just another way for her to manipulate me. This therapist says I have autism. But my wife is very adept at getting therapists on her side. She has a degree in psychology. I am trying to get independently diagnosed. I've talked to my PCP, a therapist, and a psychologist, and they all don't believe I have autism. I'm waiting on another referral to someone who is more specialized in autism. I hope I have mild autism, and that is the cause and solution to our relationship issues. What do you all think about this whole situation? Am I an abuser? Sometimes I go back to thinking I am. Is my wife an abuser? How do I support my wife through her trauma when her trauma is aimed at me? How do I know if I have autism? The referral to a new psychologist might not happen. It's been weeks. Is going to this new autism-specific therapist a bad idea if I don't actually have autism? Even though things are better, I sometimes feel angry about what she's put me through, and the fact that I'm angry at her makes me feel like a terrible partner. How do I get past this? My half-sister hates me because I am the product of her dad cheating, and I told my dad I hate her too. Backstory. So I was the baby born from an affair. My bio dad left his wife and married my mom when she was pregnant with me. My dad had a daughter at that point who was 3, and she split time every other month in spring break at our place. My half-sister hated the divorce, and she lashed out at her dad for a while, and just recently, maybe 3 years ago, forgave him and my mom. But she has always hated me. I was the divorce baby in her eyes. I don't remember this, but my cousins told me that when I was a baby, she refused to do anything with me and constantly screamed when I cried. My dad tried to make her stop, but she never would. Once I was able to start walking and talking and such things got bad, she basically tormented me and treated me like her own punching bag. I didn't understand till I was older, and we fought a lot. My dad tried to stop it where he could, but she would just keep coming, and I wasn't about to just get bullied and not stand up for myself. When she hit like 11 and I was 8, she calmed down, and her scream outward hate towards me turned to a low, simmering hate. Whenever I tried talking with her, it was always something like, just go away. Go ruin some other mom's life and some other stuff. I remember being like 10 and asking my mom why she hated me, and she, my sister, very clearly said, "'Cause you're the reason my mom and dad divorced." My mom tried to tell her that's terrible, and to her credit, she did apologize, but it was forced. Main problem. Right now I am 16 and she's 19. I have absolutely zero relationship with her, and she still hates me over what happened with her mom and dad. My dad was saying that my sister was going to be here for almost 2 months because it's spring break plus the month she would be here. I wasn't happy because it was just another month and a half of tension and feeling like shit for literally existing. My dad asked me why I'm not excited to see my big sister, and I kind of just lost it. I know they made up, but she's never made up with me? I flat out told him, why am I not excited to see her? I don't know. Maybe because I fucking hate her? She is the reason home life has been literal hell for me when I'm the one who did nothing. I wasn't the mistress or the one who fucking cheated. My dad told me to watch my mouth and how I talk about him and my mom. I just waved it off and went to my room. Update. I have read every last one of your guys' posts, and I appreciate the help. I will talk with her tomorrow and see what happens and make a post about it. My 27F husband, 30M, cheated and gave me an STD. I hate him, but have to maintain contact. My husband and I have been married for 5 years and had what I thought was a great relationship. We'd had our problems, but so does every couple, and we always resolved them. I was fully under the impression that we had a strong, faithful marriage. I was wrong. A month ago, I was sent a photo message from a friend. They were in a bar and had spotted my husband with a young woman in his lap. When he came home, I confronted him and he came clean about a string of affairs that made me sick to my stomach. What had began as my husband hitting up chat rooms for women to talk dirty with had descended into him meeting them for sex in hotels and even our own home when I was away on business. He reluctantly showed me tapes he'd made of himself and women in our bed, as well as messages such as, "I have a girl, but she'll never know." I just felt humiliated and worthless. As if that wasn't bad enough, there was another thing. I've been trying to get pregnant for over a year. To my horror, he told me the sex he'd had with these women was unprotected. All of it, because it felt hotter. Next day, I went to get tested and discovered I have an STD. I'm undergoing some treatment for it, but I'm absolutely furious at my husband for what he's done. Safe to say I'm divorcing him. I have to keep some level of contact with him for the proceedings, but they're mostly through my lawyer, given that he wouldn't stop blowing up my phone with crying voice notes before I blocked him. During our in-person meetings, he does nothing but pout and try to manipulate me, to an extent that his own lawyer carefully interjected and said, "Listen, I think she's made her choice. I need some advice on how I should best deal with him moving forward." As my title says, I hate him, but I can't not speak with him considering the divorce proceedings. We have a joint bank account which we both need to go to close down. I also own our home and he's moved out, but he'll have to come back sometime to get his crap. I feel like he'll act like a simpering idiot every time, but I don't care to argue, so I just want to ask how I should confidently and maturely deal with him until such time that I can go no contact and never have to deal with him again. My husband won't consider being sterilized. He wants me to do it instead. Is this fair? 32F and 37M. Me, 32F, and my other half 37M just had a baby this week. We've been together for 11 years now, and this baby is our second child. In fairness, I'm medically incapable of having more children, to term. I can physically get pregnant, but I can't give birth again. We decided that we were okay with 2 kids and that this would be our last. My doctor asked me a few weeks ago whether I wanted to be sterilized as they'd be opening me up anyway during a C-section. My husband and I talked this over and he said that it was a good idea. I was hesitant, but I think just for practical reasons, sterilization was for the best. I agreed and we signed off on sterilization. However, due to the previously mentioned medical issue, I started bleeding at 37 weeks and my baby had to be born on an emergency basis. During an emergency C-section, they do not perform sterilization as it's done for life-saving reasons. The doctors made it clear to me afterwards that I would need to essentially triple up on contraceptive measures until I could get the surgery done, which may be a very long wait. Sterilization during C-section is quite a lot better at preventing pregnancies, as the one where you get just the sterilization surgery alone is keyhole surgery. It has higher rates of ectopic pregnancy. The thought hadn't crossed my mind, but my husband's grandmother was visiting and she said, "OP has given you 2 children. She's had major surgery for you twice now. Why don't you get the sterilization surgery?" The midwife was present during this and spoke about how much faster it could be done for men than women, and how I'd had quite invasive surgeries and another, even if minor surgery, I would be looking at a much longer recovery time than most. In total, I've had major surgery on my abdomen area 6 times throughout my life. My husband said there's no way he's having sterilization surgery. He didn't even want to discuss it. However, he still wanted to discuss me having the surgery and still wanted me to have the surgery. He kept saying that it's different for a man. I feel like he's not being fair, especially when I've had to be cut open twice already for our kids. I spend the pregnancies with hyperemesis gravidarum, so 9 months of dehydration caused by being unable to go 30 minutes without vomiting. I don't understand why he won't even talk about it, but I'm also worried that he doesn't want to do it because he wants to have a fallback card in his pocket in case we separate, so that he can have kids with another woman. I don't know whether I'm being inconsiderate since technically, it is me who shouldn't get pregnant, not him. Part of me wishes that we could go through this together, though. I'm really confused by this. My M41 wife, F37, of 10 years, 12 together, out of the blue, decided she wasn't in love anymore and wants to YOLO it. She is moving out next month. We have a 3-year-old boy. Background: we are in the U.S. MCOL major East Coast city. We own a house and a car. Income is jointly 200K plus, split more or less equally. Expenses are divided equally. Both have master's degrees. Political and ethical values are almost exactly aligned across all subjects. We have a normal social circle, somewhat diminished by COVID, with regular interactions, weekly brunches, sports watching, game nights, etc. I am on great terms with her family. Her mother and brother visit 4 times a year and stay with us. My parents visit 6 times a year and stay with us as well. As far as I can tell, she is on good terms with them as well. Both of our parents and relatives are extremely supportive and friendly. Life has been on basically easy mode for the last 5 years, which is ironically one of her complaints. We are just coasting. We are doing great financially, maxing out 401k and saving for our kids' education. We are both calm and rational. Fight frequency is around 3 times per year and manifests itself as us just taking time and space apart for a few days, and everything goes back to normal. There is no yelling or physical violence or any discomfort. It's more of a, I need some space to myself right now. Last month, my wife announced she is leaving next month. This came as a complete shock to me. At first, I thought it was a joke, then an attempt to get me to do something, then the realization she was serious. I have attempted everything I can think of to find an avenue of moving forward together, but all has fallen on deaf ears. I offered counseling, taking time apart, seeing other people romantically, a period of focusing of treating each other with special care and affection, etc. Everything has been dismissed without any thought. Furthermore, I'm not getting a further explanation than, I'm not in love anymore. Okay, now admittedly, the intensity of the romantic feelings have declined, but I thought this was just the natural cycle of being married. Intense romantic attraction over time transforms into something more stable with age. A form of love where companionship, friendship, non-physical affection take an increasingly more prominent role as the relationship ages, and I was okay with it. Until very recently, we still had a healthy sexual life, about 10 times per week. I find her attractive, and it came as a complete shock when she announced seemingly out of nowhere that she wasn't sexually attracted to me anymore. We had disagreements in the past about the sex frequency and settled on 2.5 hours per week whenever possible of sexy time devoted entirely to us. At some point, she started making jokes about how my sexual drive is supposed to slow down at this point, and maybe I should find a younger woman to satisfy me. I thought this was just playful banter. It is my personal belief that a good relationship is based on the quality of the experiences people have together. Earlier in the relationship, we traveled all across the world, taking a month of vacation per year to exotic places. We ran marathons together, played video games together, cooked together, did yoga together, etc. The nature of our experiences together was always overwhelmingly positive. When we decided to have kids, we came to an agreement that we'd stay together no matter what until they were 18. This is part of the reason I feel betrayed now. I realize it's a stupid thing to agree to, but it made sense at the time. Since she got pregnant, everything changed. Our relationship didn't just not take priority, it fell out of the top 10. Work, childcare, her personal hobbies, her extended family all of a sudden became more important. I was cognizant of this change and tried to implement special time for us alone together, but was met with lukewarm responses at best. She was dragging her feet on everything, making it seem that usual things like attending a friend's wedding was all of a sudden a great favor she was doing for everyone. I tried my best to suggest things for us to do together, but increasingly got rejected more and more. Fine. I thought this was just a phase. We'll tough it out and recapture the magic as our kid gets older. I should say that she has been acting depressed, not enjoying life, complaining about work more and more. One complaint she had since our kid was born was lack of support in childcare. In the first 2 years, our child preferred the company of his mother. I thought this was normal and understandable. We tried multiple times for me to give him baths, get him dressed, but he would always start crying and ask for his mother. Since he became 3, he increasingly wants to spend time with me more and more. So while asking for more help, my wife refused offers for me to make school lunches, get him dressed for school, and walk him to school and back. I'm lost on how to proceed. Mum, 51F, forbade me, 25F, from telling our family that I graduated so that her real daughter, 30F, won't be hurt. I, 25F, just found out that I passed my final exams in medical school. I am being told by my mother to not tell anyone outside of our family so as to not hurt a cousin of mine, who is more of a daughter to her than I ever will be. That cousin is almost 30 and still hasn't completed medical school for the past 9 years because of medical leaves because she is physically disabled. She had an ACL tear and depression. She still can walk. Nobody is telling her to run to class. As for her alleged psychiatric illness, she's not taking the antidepressants prescribed to her. I say alleged because she feels as though her depression is purely biological and not caused by any trauma. It might be because I dislike her in general. I think she's faking it, but this might be my hate talking. Once it was announced, I wanted to call my extended family right then. But my mother shouted, "Don't you dare," and told me to consider cousin's feelings, and that she might fall into depression if she knows a younger cousin finished medical school earlier than she did. My dad and I were shocked that my mother said that, and my dad got angry. He told me to tell anyone I wanted and be proud. He pushed mom along with him and told me to take pictures with my friends. Later that day, mom texted me this. "I know you must be proud, but just think how cousin must feel. Do you not love her at all? She's having a tough time as it is. I am not asking much, just don't post this on social media. You can tell dad's family, but not mine. No congratulations, no I'm proud of you." I cried for maybe an hour until dad came to check on me. He told his family about the result, and my paternal grandmother wanted to have a party that weekend to celebrate. Come weekend, the party was great. I posted a picture on my Insta story, and I had blocked all my maternal relatives to assuage mum. But I didn't know that my aunt's business account was following me, so she sent it out in our family group chat that I graduated and congratulated me. My aunt DM'd, gently asking if we were okay and why I had blocked her on her main account. I just told the truth and said, "Mum told me not to hurt a certain cousin's feeling." Auntie was fuming and told my maternal grandmother, and now it's a big fight. Mum sent me all sorts of nasty texts that I can't bring myself to type because I might cry. Dad's on my side, I'm glad I have him. They fought and Mum left to stay at her sister's house. I've been replaying everything in my mind. What have I done wrong? Was I really that insensitive?